Welcome to What Matters, a podcast that looks inward at unique experiences, upward for divine direction, and outward at God's activity in our world. I'm Michelle Funk, your host, and I'm so glad that you're with us today. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, share it, rate it, talk about it, comment on it. We want this podcast to go just as far as it can. And so, again, glad that you're with us today. And I am so delighted to get to introduce you to Joyner, who is with us today, Resurrection member and just a long time, just foundational part of Church of the Resurrection. And so, Anne, welcome.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. You have such a great story with regard to your family, your faith, and it's been an instrumental story in many things that go on around this place called Church of the Resurrection. And so I just wanted us to talk about this and your story, and we'll start with your family, and in particular, tell us about your son Matthew.
Matthew was another name that we gave Matthew was Miracle Man, which I found out was Reverend Burton's name as well. Miracle Man. We have
Nice.
that in common. Matthew, when I was pregnant with him, 7.5 months pregnant, I was told that he was not worth saving because he had a very severe chromosome abnormality, which was very, very rare. He was like one of 33. And so instead of planning for him to live, we planned a funeral.
Wow.
And that was our introduction to the church in Arlington, Texas. Matthew obviously lived. And that's why we call him our Miracle Man.
Yeah.
He lived for 21 years.
Wow.
And he brought us joy and he brought meaning to our lives and so many other people's lives. And he continues to do that in all the things that he inspired along the way.
Yeah. You have this great saying about Matthew, about him not ever saying a word.
Yeah.
And yet
he spoke volumes.
Yeah.
He did not speak.
Yeah.
He didn't walk until he was 7 or 8 years old. He was in diapers. He did learn how to feed himself. He rode horses. He went swimming. He laughed. He laughed a laugh from down inside. And one of the stories I do remember fondly about him, and people say, well, how can that be a fond memory, was when he was diagnosed with cancer at 16, of all things, with all the other things he had to deal with. He got a rare form of cancer when he was 16 years old. And we lived in Colorado at the time, and we would go to the hospital for radiation. And we'd get in an elevator, and something about elevators just made him laugh and laugh out loud, so loud. And the doors of the elevator would open, and we'd be in the basement of this huge hospital out in Denver with the concrete walls and all this, and there'd be people just there for the same reason we were there, for radiation.
Yeah.
And every person we looked at, we didn't know who was going to live and make it through the treatment and who was going to die. And I'll never forget one day, one lady came up to me and said, okay, I was ready to give up. I was ready to give up, but it was because of your son and the people that were with him, because it was always me and somebody else, whether it be my husband, a friend. She said it was in watching you that we thought, and watching him and listening to him, he gave me hope. He gave me inspiration and said, you too can get through this treatment. We don't know what the other side is going to look like, but she said, I wanted to come back every day then just to see him. So that's one of my favorite, how he inspired people.
Love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And so he is a namesake, really, of lots of things that happen here at our church. So how did you come to Church of the Resurrection?
Okay,
And
it was in 93. So Matthew was
Mhm.
born in 84 in Arlington, Texas.
Okay.
And like I say, that is where we had gone to church to plan a funeral.
Yeah.
And the church at that time said, okay, no matter what, we don't know what's going to happen, but no matter what happens, we will be your church family. And they were.
Yeah.
And but one of the things they didn't have was a special needs ministry.
Yeah.
So it was fine in the beginning. Matthew was part of the nursery.
Mhm.
And it was wonderful. And there were loving people that would rock him
Yeah.
and just be with him every Sunday. So we could worship and go to Sunday school. But then maybe he was 4 or 5. He no longer, even though he was like a baby,
Mhm.
some of the families,
Mhm.
it just became uncomfortable
Yeah.
for us and them.
Yeah.
So I went to the which were now good friends, people in
Mhm.
the church, the
Mhm.
staff, and said, we need to start a we need to start a ministry for
Yeah.
people with special needs, like our Matthew.
Right.
And they said, Ann, we've tried that before.
Mm.
And, and this was actually a 100-year-old church.
Yeah.
And they said, we've tried it off and on. And I said, well, we need to try it again.
Yeah.
And so they gave me the reins, and that class was called Amazing Grace, and it is still going strong. It is still
Nice.
going strong all these years later.
Nice.
So it takes one person at the right time. A lot of times it's not your timing, but it's God's timing.
Yeah.
And he felt in, oh golly, that was in the 80s, the
Mhm.
late 80s, that it was time to do that.
Yeah.
So when we moved here in 93, and first met Adam, Adam said, I believe Matthew's the beginning of a special ministry with children and families of children with special needs.
Yeah.
And he said, will you help us? And it's like, we have done this,
Right.
and I'm tired.
Right.
And he said, no, we need to do this. I just feel like he's calling us to do this. So we jumped in. We jumped in, and our first training was in the gym, and it was on March 24th, 1993, the
Wow.
gym of Leawood Elementary School.
Right.
And there were 324 full members at that time.
In
I
our
went back
church.
in our
Yeah.
church.
Uh-huh.
And that training session, 20 members showed up to see how they could help us care for Matthew
amazing.
and to see what did this look like.
Mhm.
So we started going to church, and we had a team of 5 members, one for each Sunday, and that 5th Sunday. But then Adam tapped Jerry and said, we need adult Sunday school
Mm.
teachers. And it's like, well, how can we do this? We still have Matthew, and he needs more care.
Uh-huh.
So our team grew from 5 members to 10 members.
Yeah.
And he was cared for every single week for, it was 3 hours. It was
Mhm.
amazing, the people that stepped forward.
Mm.
And the minute that we joined and started telling people, then another one came, and another one came, and another one came.
Mm.
So it just
Also
takes,
needing care.
yes,
Yeah.
also needing care.
Yeah.
So we had, I think when we left Leawood Elementary, we had 3 or 4,
Mhm.
and I believe they were all boys. It all started with boys.
Yeah. Oh. And it's called Matthew's Ministry.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Matthew was inspired it. So,
Yes. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And boy, howdy, that has grown over the years.
Mhm.
Matthew's ministry, I mean, it incorporates so many different things now,
Yes.
today.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
It all started with what we called angel care,
Mhm.
which is what when somebody would meet us at the door,
Mhm.
and we would hand off Matthew and hand the bag.
Yeah.
And so those angels, and they truly were angels, were there every single Sunday for us.
Right.
And because we were allowed to grow in our faith, and he was taken care of, we were able to do so much more with the church. And I always look at this, and I look at the ministry now. It is not just for families to be served, but it then allows them to serve. I mean, Jerry and I have gone on to teach Sunday schools and to be part of mission teams and all this, but without everybody else's hands and feet, we couldn't have served on the committees. One of the best stories with him being part of Resurrection in the beginning is Jerry would take him to Methodist men at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And
United Methodist Men.
Yes, United Methodist Men. And it was actually United Methodist Men that came up with the funds that first funded the program.
Wow.
Because they saw Matthew, and they saw, and so they would have bird seed sales and hot dog sales, and all those funds would go towards Matthew's ministry. And that's how the initial budget was met and started.
Yeah.
So that was, so the more people that got to meet him, the more people were inspired to do things that they didn't feel, they could do or should do or were even aware of doing. I love how it says it's an awareness. It's an awareness ministry. Part of it is awareness. A lot of it is.
Yeah.
Because people just don't realize.
Yeah, right. Just don't think about it, that there are some really amazing needs that we can help provide. And if we just are aware and know how to take that first step and try on those angel wings just for a little bit.
Yes.
So it started with angel care. And what else?
Well, then it went to family night out was the next thing. And what that is, and Jerry and I have been on both sides of family night out. And I'll never forget the first one. Helped plan it, told, the volunteers, because I don't think at that time we didn't have paid staff at that time. And that was in, the first family night out was after we came back from Colorado. So it was like 2001.
Okay.
And so trained the volunteers and said, okay, you can feed the kids and maybe we'll bring somebody in with a guitar and maybe have some games and maybe a movie. And so Jerry and I got all dressed up and basically showed up at the church and handed Matthew over with his bag and all his goodies. And we were given 2.5 hours. And we came back and we were so refreshed and just still looking like we were dressed to the nines and, looking good. And the gals that had him that night looked like their hair was in disarray, but they all had smiles on their face. And it's like, they're like, you had fun, didn't you? And I was like, oh, we had the best time. And they said, well, we did too. I found out later some of the things that happened. And one of the reasons I found out was now Jerry and I are on the other side. We help care for those and let other parents go out. And I mean, a lot of times we need to have our running shoes on. And I'm sure as we get older, we look more worse for the wear
Disarrayed.
at the end of the disarrayed at the end of the night. But it's so amazing and so worth it. And the gift that we give to families is sometimes that is the family's only opportunity to get away from their from their loved one who has special needs. People who have children or relatives with special needs have one of the highest divorce rates because it's a 24/7. It's a 24/7. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of unknowns. And so that gift is something that we've really been able to give a lot of parents, even though it's once a month. So we have one coming up on June 19th. It's actually the first one since that would have been February of 2020. So these parents are just
they're ready.
They're ready. They are so ready. And so are the volunteers.
Right.
I mean, we can't wait. And so we will bring our other son, Matthew, has a brother. And so he and his wife are actually going out of town that weekend. So we have the grandkids who are 7 and 5. They will come serve with Jerry and I. It is a great family event.
Yeah.
And you might see little Eva pushing around a wheelchair that's 4 times as big as her.
Yeah.
And she runs with it.
Yeah.
And whoever's in it loves it. So we find ways to include everybody. So the family night out is pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody should volunteer if you can. Do it. My husband actually has volunteered at those family night outs, and he comes back just grinning, just from ear to ear, you know, and he'll talk about what he got to do and who he got to hang out with, and you know,
we will never put a volunteer with somebody who they're not feeling comfortable with and all this, because we have all different needs and all different ages. I mean, we may have a 2-year-old to a 60-year-old, or even we have some that are 70 years old. And so we call them buddies. We'll pair you up, and you are somebody's buddy for a night.
Right.
And there's lots of folks around to support you.
Yeah.
And
what a great thing.
Yeah.
And included in that, or in addition to that, I should say, is a family serve day, right? Tell me about that.
So actually then the next week, the next Saturday on June 26th, there's a family serve day where families will get together, and it's working with our school, our partner school here on campus. And they're going to be scrubbing out bins for the next school year and working. So it's just so those families can come and be with other families.
Yeah.
Because on family night out, now we do know some couples now that have met up and they're going out together, which is cool.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's just the couple or girlfriends or a guy. Well, there's one family that just goes home and enjoys the quiet of their home. But the families together, this will give them an opportunity to be with other like families.
Right.
And to serve and to give back, because everybody they don't just want to be served, they want to serve. I mean, I think, we were all born to serve.
Right.
And we all have gifts, and it's our job to help find people, discover their gifts, and, help people discover their gifts.
Yeah. Matthew's ministry. I bet Matthew is smiling about all of this, even now.
Yes. He cheers us on. He cheers us on. He does.
Yeah. So his experience also led to another amazing thing that happens at our church frequently. The blood drive.
Yes.
Tell me how that got started and your role in that. And I just love this story.
Well, shortly after we came, I think it was the year after we were here, or we joined in 93. It was in 94. We were told Matthew needed surgery, and he would need several units of blood. And so, of course, Mama Bear comes out. Where's the blood coming from? Who, is there enough? Where is it? I want to see it. I want to touch it. So they said, well, one way, so in the beginning, I found that out one night and came to work the next morning. And work happened to be here at the church. I was Adam's part-time assistant along with another gal. We job shared because obviously I had to take care of Matthew, but it was a great outreach that I was able to do. And I had ended up on the church staff in Arlington, Texas. And then, so this was a wonderful transition. We were a staff of 10 at the time.
Wow.
But so people and the congregation knew everybody. So when they called, I was answering the phone, and I'm not a good poker player, and I cannot hide if somebody says, "How are you?" I cannot say I'm fine when I'm not.
Yeah.
And so soon, shortly after, people knew that day that Matthew needed blood, and I was going to need blood, and I was in a panic.
Yeah.
And several people said, "Well, I'll donate, I'll donate, I'll donate."
Yeah.
So I called the community blood center, and they said, "Well, I think, you've got a lot, but if you put Matthew's name on all the blood that people want to donate, if he doesn't use it all, we would throw it away." And that reminded me of going to Sears and having the kids' portraits made, and what we didn't buy so I've got stacks and stacks. They're not even good pictures, but I had to buy them so they wouldn't get thrown away. So I went to Adam, told him the story, and he said, "Well, I think there's an opportunity. You need to maybe have a blood drive here at the church."
Yeah.
And so that very first blood drive, we collected 42 units in 1993. And now we have 4 blood drives a year at 4 of our different campuses. And total, we have now collected over 51,000 units since 1993. And so it started out very selfishly. Our son needed blood.
Yeah.
Our son needed this. Our son needed, cared for. So what starts out very selfishly has turned into an incredible blessing for more people than we can ever imagine or will ever know. And
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I run into people who talk about, I've given my so many pints of blood. I mean, again, it's that call to give, to serve, to, to have purpose that is above and beyond yourself. And so, yes, the recipients of that much needed blood is so vital. All of that, but the givers, they're blessed as well along the way. Yeah. And again, inspired because of Matthew, Oh,
Like I say, he brought out the best in so many people.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I know that we get to see Matthew in our stained glass window here at Church of the Resurrection at our Leawood campus. He's the only member of Church of the Resurrection in this window. Oh my goodness. When did you find out that that was going to happen? Or how did you find out, I guess? I mean, because we all heard about this window, right? And we all were on board with, oh my, it's going to be made, and there'll be characters in the window and all that. I haven't heard this story of like, who told you Matthew's going to be in that?
Okay, I got a text or an email from Adam saying, "I need a picture of Matthew." And I thought, "Adam, you've got pictures of Matthew. What, well, no, I'd love to see your favorite picture again." And so I thought, okay. And next thing I know, it came back. I guess he had taken it to California, to Judson Studios. And they talked about how this, Matthew inspired Matthew's ministry, and it says so much about this church and the value that this church put on a person's life.
Yeah.
All people's lives. And it just so happens that Matthew represents so many people.
Right.
And it's not, so when I look at him, I see so many faces in his face.
Yeah.
It's not just him.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I do see him, and I see his image, but he represents so many, and the value, like I say, the value every life is invaluable. And that's what that says to me. And it says to all the other parents and people that are looking at that window, because it's like, well, who's the boy in the window?
Yeah.
Well, that boy happens to be a person whose parents were told, this is not a life worth saving.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
God took that life and turned it
Right.
and continues to. It didn't just stop there. The story continues.
Yeah.
And but like I say, invaluable, just invaluable. And but the day we found out, and the day that they unrolled the
The panel.
the panel,
Yes.
it was all on paper, and I remember Dan and Adam and Lee Boudin was there, and I just we just bawled.
Yeah.
And then they said, well, if you aren't thrilled or happy, we can
They thought you were upset.
we can do something else and have
Different.
somebody. And it's like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
This is no. It was it was just so, we are so honored and humbled by that. And like I
Yeah.
say, it speaks volumes about this church and the heart and what continues here, and the value that, everyone's valuable.
Yeah.
Absolutely everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
The documentary, it's called Holy Frit, and it tells the story of the making of the window in the perspective of the artist and all of the trials and tribulations he went through. And there's some language and all of that, but it is such an amazing journey, the making of this window.
yeah.
And there's a scene in there
Ah.
when they show you the panel, and I'll probably choke up just even talking about it. I, of course, as a member of this church, I saw that all happening, but that documentary just really tells so much about the story of it. And the beautiful scene where you and your husband get to see that panel for the first time. Oh, it just takes your breath away. So
that
yeah.
That brought us, I remember going up the stairs, and I remember people saying, okay, watch out for this cord, or because we were in the back of the sanctuary all the way up.
Yeah.
And but then, until I saw it on tape, it's kind of, I don't, it's like
Don't even remember.
I don't remember. And so I saw that and I thought, oh my gosh, because it was one of those just
Moments.
out of
Yeah.
body experiences when
Yeah.
I saw it, and I just, I couldn't believe it. It was
Yeah.
just so amazing. And so,
Yeah.
that was one of
It's a
our
beautiful, beautiful
moments.
moment.
It's,
Yeah. So I've heard you talk about this before, Anne, that Matthew was born, with a chromosomal, you say it better than I will, abnormality. But I guess relate that to your faith. What lesson did you learn from that? Or how do you relate that to your faith? Do you think God, appointed that to
No.
happen? Yeah.
No.
Yeah, tell me about that.
God. Well, up to that point, we were what I call CNE, Christmas and Easter.
Right?
We knew this church in Arlington
Yeah.
and would go, but we were busy. We were a busy young couple with a 3-year-old
Yeah.
at the time. And then when Matthew was born, like I say, in the beginning, that church said, now we don't know whether he's going to live or die.
Yeah.
We're not, but just know that whatever happens, we'll be here for him.
Yeah.
And so I guess with that, it's like, okay, if you'll be there for us, we will commit and be there for you and allow our faith to grow.
Yeah.
And but what I knew from the very beginning, God did not cause Matthew to be what was considered severely and profoundly handicapped. And with the disabilities that he had throughout his 21 years, he didn't cause it. Nothing Jerry or I did caused it. But I do know the minute Matthew came out crying, God also shed some tears and said, okay, now let's get going. And one of my favorite scriptures for, I know the plans I have for you. And and he did. Once Matthew was with us, it's like, okay, if you, here I am. Here I am and I think that's the other one I use constantly. Here I am, take me, use me. And so it's like we raised Matthew up, and it's like, take him, use him. He's yours. And so,
It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. So you have written about this. You've written a book.
I did. And I've never dreamt of writing. In fact, writing is very, very, very challenging for me. Because my thoughts are just all over the place. But after being encouraged by many, many, many people and saying, Anne, you've got a story that could help somebody else.
That's it.
And so it was to give people hope and to give people an inside look of, being the parents of a handicapped child is not the easiest road, but it's not horrible either. We laughed a lot. In fact, we laughed harder. We loved harder. We lived harder. We had to make an effort. And so for that, when people would say, oh, well, we never wanted sorrow and never wanted pity. And I believe that's what I can say for certain our parents that are involved and families that are involved, they don't want that. They want to be a part of a community. They don't want to be set aside and taken care of. Because they have so many things that they can share. But so the book is it was called Not Worth Saving. Because that's what we were told, was his life was not worth saving, but how a severely handicapped boy transformed lives. And so that was written, oh golly, that was written originally in 2014. And so now with it was on the United Methodist Women's reading list, and it was published originally by a company here in town, a local town that was fabulous, but they since changed their the publishing companies are constantly changing, and so we ended up republishing it ourselves, and then now we're looking to republish it again with some updates. Because there's a lot to be updated. There's a reader's guide out there now, and that is on my website. And then there's just other pieces. One of the pieces that I was encouraged to write was say this, not that. And things that you say to people. And so lots of pieces, and the window. It's like how part of what's going through my mind is how does a person, how does a being that was told was not worth saving end up being the boy in the window?
I know.
So it's been a journey, and it continues to be a journey.
Yeah.
So
Oh, good.
I want to do some
I
more
want
on
you
that.
to as well. I
Yeah.
want you to add
Yeah.
those. Yeah. You
Yeah.
have such a remarkable story, such beautiful humility, such
Mhm.
great, steadfast, amazing faith. And so, thank you for just sharing all of that with us and showing us how to be like that in the world
Uh,
today, no matter what comes our way. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being
Thank
with
you.
us here on the podcast. And I don't know how to add to that, but that's what matters. And we're so glad that we've had the opportunity to get to know Matthew through your stories and through your words and through your eyes and all he has inspired to be. And so jump in and join in and be part of Matthew's ministry, be part of the blood drive, be part of all things that happen. And I think when we do that, Matthew probably smiles, the biggest smile you could ever imagine. Yay. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. I'm Michelle Funk, your host. I'll see you next time. Thank you. And
Thank you.
beautiful. Beautiful. I never met Matthew, but now I
Oh.
feel like I know him just a little bit. And I'm so grateful to
Thank
to
you.
know him. Yeah. So good stories. You have the best
Oh.
stories ever. And what an amazing journey.
Yeah. It continues.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
just it continues.
Yeah. Yeah. I am just so amazingly grateful.
There's
Thank you.
more.